Today on Game Dev Corner, we're talking to Roy van der Schilden. Roy is lead writer, business director, amongst other things, for the adventure game Herald, an interactive period drama by his company Wishfire. Welcome to the interview, Roy. Thank you for having.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as well.
All right, yeah, because we were at a time difference. Roy is in the Netherlands. He just had a business lunch, and I just woke up. So great.
Mhm.
Now, instead of talking about game dev, this is the Game Dev Corner show, we're going to talk about the story because Roy's the lead writer on the project. And when we talk about adventure games, the two main qualities that come to mind are storytelling and puzzle solving. And I'm from the age of Sierra, where there was like Laura Bow, The Dagger of Amun-Ra, Indiana Jones games, there was Police Quest games, and then there was Myst and Gabriel Knight. Those are the two big ones in my mind. So exploration and getting to know the environment and learning about the setting, that's all part of the adventure experience. But really, you're playing for the story. So,
Yes.
Roy, tell me, what inspired you to work or want to write a story for a period timepiece like Herald?
Well, to begin with, Herald is an interesting game for us because I wanted with Herald to tell a story that moved others to do different, I guess. We wanted to tell something that really mattered, and a lot of video games tell great stories, but at the same time also shy a bit away of difficult subject matter. And we wanted to, instead of just make the main characters aliens and talk about difficult issues with aliens, for example, we wanted to just take the setting and theme, which is colonialism and identity, finding your identity in a world divided by race, class, and religion, and create a game about that, about a search for your own identity, about a main character who is searching for who he is in the world and what he was to aspire to.
So it sounds like a classic story about a coming of age or identity, and it is a period drama. So I'm assuming there's lots of history involved. Is this like a historical account of colonialism for the Netherlands, or is this just like a really big thing that every person from the Netherlands is like, "Yep, we all know this story. We're just going to retell it again in our own way."
Well, what we wanted to do with Harold, it's indeed a period drama, but it's inspired by 19th century history. It's actually an alternate 19th century, and we wanted to tell a story about colonialism and finding your identity in a world divided by race, class, and religion, again. And what we wanted to do with that, we wanted to make it universal so that anyone who would play the game would understand that it wasn't just a small part of history, but that it was a struggle that most people go through when they are searching for who they are in life. So what we did was we took history, 19th century history, and we created a pan-European empire known as the Protectorate, which is inspired by Oliver Cromwell's Protectorate, which actually existed.
Right.
And we told a story about cultural imperialism and basically how we, as societies in the European Union and the United States, are increasingly becoming melting pots of different cultures, and a lot of people, kind of in these societies, are still searching for what they want to identify with, what sets of characteristics do they adopt that becomes their culture. Becomes increasingly more difficult these days.
Now, I notice this takes place on a ship. Is that the main setting? And it's a very good analogy to have a ship. You're going on a voyage, you're going for self-discovery, you're discovering a new world, you're colonizing a new world. Is that where most of the story takes place?
Exactly. It's cool that you see that because the herald is a metaphor for society in general. If everyone works together, the ships arrive at the point that you want it to be. If they don't, it'll sink.
Oh, really?
That's
Oh,
well,
jeez.
that's not literally what might happen in the game, but that what happened with society. Society goes down when we all don't agree with each other and we fight constantly, right? We need to work together to keep this thing going. Basically, that's a bit of that's the metaphor of the ship. That's the herald. Um, so yeah, that's mainly where it takes place. It takes all place on this ship where you, as a steward of on board, have to decide on how to solve conflicts basically, because as a steward you're responsible for all the people on board, the important but also the downtrodden, the rich and the poor, women and men.
Okay, that's. I thought it was going to be like a pirate adventure if you do something wrong, but that's good. Okay, you're focusing on a story. I noticed the stretch goals for your Kickstarter,
Hmm.
and there's I think the second and the third one. These are voice acting, and that sounds like a really big task for a game of your size. The
Yes,
first one I believe is just for cinematics, and the next one is the full game.
exactly.
So I'm assuming that the script is pretty much done, and you're like, okay, we just got to get the talent, we need the time, and we'll just get it done. Is that it?
We're currently developing a lot of the script alongside the game itself, which means that the entire story we thought out of it, all the everything, but we're still working on a lot of the dialogue, the actual dialogue that needs to take place. So if we are going to do voice acting, we're also going to record it chronologically. Which basically what we're doing, we're releasing the first part of which almost all the dialogue is already written, in February 2016, and the second part will be released in October 2016 if everything goes well.
Okay, so you actually thought about, hey, this is going to take a lot of time to do. We're going to
Hmm.
release the game when the game is ready, but we're going to have like an extended edition for all the content that we really want to get in, the voice acting, all the music, all the other stuff that might come along with that. Is that correct?
Well, the idea is that we release first half of the game, which is when if the voice acting tier is made, if we reach the stretch goal with the voice acting, then it will mean that the first part will also have the voice acting in February 2016. That's
Oh, okay.
what we're looking for, and then the second part will be developed after that. And then that will be released in October, but it will all be the full package. You will get the full package of the first half when it's released in February 2016.
Okay, so this is a two-part or two-episode or two-chapter game, and
Yes,
you're just
exactly.
releasing it in stages. Okay, I thought there was going to be like
Yes.
this is like standalone, and then if it goes well, you're going to do another one or a different story or a different game.
No, it's really two parts basically. Part one and part two. That's how we planned it out.
Okay, that's
Part
interesting.
part one is two chapters, and part two is another two chapters. So it's like four chapters in total, with an interlude in the middle.
Sounds like a very large story. Okay.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've ever heard of an old website. You probably never had. It's called Old Man Murray. This is back in the birth of the internet, 1999, 2000, and he wrote an article called "The Death or the Dead of Adventure Gaming." And this was a tale or a three-part. It wasn't a very large post
Mhm.
back before we actually had blogging software, but it was about the way that adventure games had logical puzzles that were really poorly designed. Like you didn't understand the causal relationship between a key and a lock. Like you didn't know what the key looked like. You had to make your own keys. This was he specifically targeted the puzzles in the game Gabriel Knight 3, which was really frightening to play. I don't know if you've ever played Gabriel Knight series. The first one was brilliant. The next were
Mhm.
FMV. The second was FMV, and the third one was a catastrophe. So what are the puzzles? I know you can't talk about much of the gameplay and specifically, but how do you get around the problem of having puzzles that are easy to identify the components but difficult enough to solve?
It's interesting that you ask it because when we look at the puzzle design of Herald, it's all incorporated into the story. So every element of a puzzle is part of the story. So when you find it, it is already part of the narrative world, which means that you know what to do with it, or you either heard it from some character that you were supposed to find that thing and do something with it. And if you do not know it, you can find it through information that you can get from those characters. So when we look at Herald and puzzles in general, every puzzle that you'll have to solve will be something that has to do with the story that is being told. So you'll never get like really arbitrary, weird puzzles where find the 3 random blocks and put them in the wall and then something happens. That's not what Herald is about. Herald is about an interactive story that also uses puzzles to tell some story elements, some part of it.
So there's not going to be like some magical painting that talks to you and shifts, and you have to get the right colors in place. Like it's not like a magical voyage vessel. This is just a ship. There's people on it, and they have their own social issues. And you have to hear what they say, and you go around trying to solve that problem. Is that pretty much it?
Yes, that's exactly what we intend to do with Harold. And well, what's interesting, there are also some environmental puzzles. Like for instance, in the demo, you can find a key somewhere, and you can indeed use it on a door, and then in that room you will find a document that tells about something in the bookcase, and then you go to the bookcase, and that's how it works. Basically, the world will never just do something randomly magical for the game world to exist. It's
Right.
always from the story.
Right, because I was thinking of like the King's Quest series where it's a totally magical world and you don't know what everything does. And mind you, those were not horribly done games, but you had to say, oh, this is a fantasy. This is a fantasy setting. It's all something I have to figure out as I go. Whereas this is all contemporary.
Yes, it is all. It is indeed all realistic in that sense. It's all about what you expect things to do. But also in the story there are also some plot twists that will totally change things around. But that's it. It will never be completely illogical, like magic or science fiction or something like that.
Good to hear. All right. Okay, so Wishfire, we were talking about this before the interview, is your small company. It has done other work like web dev and smaller games, and it has really beautiful artwork. I gotta say that the game is looking great. The artwork on your website looks great.
Thank you.
Now, you said there was a series of the 2 games of Herald. What do you have in mind after, let's say everything works out, it sells, it's great. What do you want to do next with your company? Where do you want to take this?
Well, we've always intended to create to be a company with Wishfire that tackles important issues or issues that we find important and things that are very well that you can explore within a gaming world. So with Herald, we decided that we want to explore colonialism and how 19th century colonialism influences us and our society today. And when we think about future projects, we had an idea to tackle, for example, cultural evolution, which is fueled by a lot of religious beliefs. We have ideas for that, to make games about religion and how religion has shaped society in ways that we almost seem to forget sometimes.
It sounds like you have a lot of writing to do.
As well.
Yeah, I know these games that you're describing sounds like you want to deal with a very powerful theme that you don't really, well, religion. I mean, there's Final Fantasy Tactics. There's all sorts of Japanese games that deal with that. But it sounds like you're doing again a much more contemporary, realistic, and believable setting that players can adapt, and which is always a good idea in writing to stick to the mundane. You can identify, you can connect with a protagonist a lot easier that way. But I really hope it works out. I'll be linking to your Kickstarter as well as the demo. A demo is one of the best things you could do for a Kickstarter, and I hope you meet your goal.
Thank you. Yeah, play the demo and hopefully pledge for us.
Okay, thank you very much, Roy.
Bye.
Okay.